What if everything you've been taught about holding on is the very thing holding you back? Our minds are built to avoid loss at almost any cost. Behavioral science reveals a powerful bias. The sting of losing something registers twice as powerfully as the joy of an equivalent gain. This isn't a personal flaw. It's a fundamental wiring in the human operating system. It's the silent engine behind remaining in draining partnerships, unfulfilling careers, and cycles that have long since run their course. We confuse the familiar with the safe, and safety, even when it's a cage, often feels less terrifying than the uncharted path ahead. True release begins the moment you recognize that your grip is not strength, but fear in disguise. Fear that your identity is tied to what you possess. Fear that the void left behind will be a permanent emptiness. But what if that emptiness isn't a mistake? What if it's necessary ground, a space for your spirit to expand, to repair, to prepare for what is more aligned with your growth? Psychologists identify this as identity attachment, the tethering of our self-worth to external markers, our careers, our relationships, the things we own, even our past narratives. When these shift or vanish, it can feel like a piece of our very soul is being torn away. That's the real source of the deep ache. It's not merely the loss of a person or a goal. It's the death of the you that existed within that context. The self that had a defined place. But here is a truth rarely spoken. Letting go is not a one-time event. It is a neurological renovation. When you release an attachment, your brain must physically reconfigure its predictive models. The conscious mind abhors a vacuum. It seeks patterns, resolution, a tidy narrative. This is the reason we obsessively revisit old dialogues, fantasize about different outcomes, or dwell on our perceived mistakes. This isn't a sign of fragility. It is a testament to our deep need for a coherent story. Yet, profound healing occurs not in analysis, but in acceptance. And acceptance is not approval. It is the conscious cessation of the internal war between what is and what you wish had been. It is the quiet utterance, "This occurred," instead of the frantic cry, "This should not have occurred." This subtle pivot from defiance to acknowledgement changes your entire reality. There is a powerful neurobiology behind surrender. Brain scans show that acceptance dials down activity in the amygdala, the brain's alarm center for fear and threat. When we truly let go, we aren't admitting defeat. We are lowering the internal noise that keeps our nervous system trapped in a perpetual state of high alert. This is why peace often feels so quiet. It isn't an absence of feeling. It is a recalibration of your entire emotional spectrum. Imagine yourself standing before a heavy door you've struggled to open for what feels like a lifetime. You've pushed, you've pleaded, you've invested your hope in its hinges. Then, one day, you simply step back. Not in resignation, but in revelation. You understand the door was never locked to keep you out. It was closed to guide you toward the right room. That is the essence of release. Understanding that resolution doesn't always come from an answer. Sometimes it comes from the quiet courage of turning away. But we rarely turn away without a chorus of internal critics. Guilt murmurs that we are being disloyal. Shame insists we should have tried harder. A fragile hope contends that perhaps, someday, things will revert. And so we linger, suspended in a state of emotional purgatory. Psychologists term this ambiguous loss grieving, something that lacks a clear ending or a definitive conclusion. It is the most agonizing form of grief because there is no ceremony for a future that never arrived. To genuinely release, you must master emotional differentiation, the skill of separating what you feel from objective truth. You can ache for someone and simultaneously know they are not your destination. You can mourn a former version of yourself while welcoming the person you are evolving into. You can cherish a memory without needing to relive it. This is emotional intelligence, the capacity to hold to opposing truths without being shattered by the tension. Many believe that letting go means the death of compassion. It does not. It means loving from a distance that safeguards your inner peace. It means being able to say, I hold love for you, but our paths must now diverge. This is compassion without entanglement. That isn't coldness. It is profound clarity. And clarity can feel unsettling initially because it is calm. We are conditioned to equate emotional turbulence with passion and meaning. So when serenity finally descends, we can mistake it for indifference. But peace is not the absence of emotion. It is the absence of compulsive reaction. It is the point where you no longer feel the need to prove your worth, justify your existence, or chase external validation. You'll know you are beginning to release when you stop rehearsing the same old scenes. When your vital energy transitions from trying to repair the past to seeking to understand its lessons. When your fundamental question morphs from why did this happen to me, to what is this experience here to teach me? That is the birthplace of wisdom, in the fertile silence between what was and what is yet to be. There is a subtle psychological truth. The mind heals through the stories we tell. When we reframe our suffering with new meaning, we seize authorship of our lives. We stop being the protagonist who was wounded and become the narrator who comprehends the arc of the journey. This is why practices like journaling or therapy are so transformative. They convert memory from a trigger for survival into a source of insight. In controlled studies, participants who wrote about emotional turmoil for just 15 minutes daily showed measurable increases in well-being and decreases in anxiety within weeks. The writing didn't erase the event. It organized the emotional chaos. That is what release truly is. Emotional organization, structuring the turmoil of memory into a framework of understanding. Yet, there is another dimension, the physical body. We store unresolved emotional tension in our musculature, our posture, our very breath. This is why people sometimes experience sudden tears during yoga or after a long run. The body remembers what the mind has tried to box away. Letting go, therefore, is not merely a mental exercise. It is a somatic one. It is the unclenching of a fist you didn't know you were making, the softening of shoulders held tight for years, the long exhalation of a breath you've been holding for a lifetime. The psychology of release is also the psychology of trust. Because to let something leave, you must have faith that life continues meaningfully beyond it. That the unknown is not a punishment, but a field of pure potential. We forget this because loss warps our perception. When something departs, we can only envision the emptiness it leaves behind. But with time, we often see that every ending secretly plants the seed for a new beginning. Consider every heartache, every collapsed dream, every door that closed. You couldn't see it then, but it was redirecting your course. You only witnessed the collapse, not the new ground it cleared. Letting go does not erase your history. It weaves it into your purpose. Our addiction to control is another major hurdle. We operate under the illusion that we can manage outcomes. If we are clever enough, diligent enough, we can force the future to conform to our will. But control is frequently a mirage constructed by fear. Authentic power lies not in forcing things to remain, but in trusting that what is truly meant for you will remain without any force whatsoever. This is what spiritual traditions call non-attachment, engaging fully with life, but without the desperate need to possess any of it. There is a profound beauty in impermanence, if you have the eyes to see it. A sunset does not apologize for its fading light. A flower does not grieve as its petals fall. We, too, can learn to honor moments for what they were, rather than resent them for not lasting forever. Every season has its duration, and so do people, memories, and the many phases of your own becoming. Sometimes the most difficult person to release is not an external other, but an internal, outdated version of you, the one who accepted less than they deserved, who believed they were not enough, who thought love was a prize to be won. Personal evolution can feel like a betrayal to that old self, but that discomfort is the price of growth. Uncomfortable honesty. Letting go isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering with newfound grace. It's about glancing backward without the aching desire to return. It's the realization that the story remains on the shelf, but it no longer dictates your present narrative. And when you arrive at that point, when your memories feel soft and weathered rather than sharp and cutting, you know you have successfully alchemized your pain into wisdom. There will be days when you believe you've moved on, until a certain melody, a familiar scent, or a random Tuesday afternoon brings the past rushing back. This does not mean you have failed. Healing is not a straight line. It is an upward spiral. Each time the memory resurfaces, it does so with less intensity, with less charge, until one day it is simply a story you know, not a wound you feel. This is the quiet miracle of human resilience. And perhaps this is the very core of a life well lived. Learning to hold and to release in a natural rhythm. To give deeply, to love openly, to grieve authentically, and then, when the season is over, to open your hands once more. Because letting go does not conclude your story. It simply turns the page to the next chapter. You cannot force yourself to forget, but you can consciously choose how you remember. You can choose to interpret endings not as brutal losses, but as sacred transitions. They are the bridge connecting the person you were to the person you are destined to become. When you cease asking, why did it leave? And begin asking, what did its presence gift me? The entire topography of your past is transformed, and maybe that is the ultimate secret. The act of letting go is never truly about the other person, the job, the city, or the moment. It is about reclaiming your inherent freedom from the mistaken belief that you needed them to be complete. You were always whole. You simply forgot for a little while. There arrives a moment when you stop attempting to return to a past chapter and instead take a tentative step forward. Even if your knees are shaking, you stop interrogating yourself about what you did wrong and start realizing that not every broken thing was your responsibility to mend. That moment, silent and unseen by the world, is when the act of release transmutes into genuine liberation. The human brain despises uncertainty. It craves resolution. It demands answers. It wants neatly tied endings. But life is predominantly written with commas, not final periods. We carry unfinished symphonies within us, stories that will never conclude in the way we once pictured, and yet, within that unresolved space, we discover the room to evolve. Because when something exits your life, it doesn't only take something away, it also liberates space for something you haven't even imagined yet. One of psychology's most challenging lessons is that closure is not a gift others bestow upon you. It is a decision you make for yourself. Waiting for an apology that will never arrive or a message that will never be sent change your peace to another S. Awareness or lack thereof. Letting go means cutting that chain. It means declaring, even without your validation, I am choosing to mend. Many people are terrified that if they let go, they will lose the very essence of what mattered: the memories, the love, the meaning. But the reverse is true. You actually retain the core of what was valuable, now purified of its associated pain. This is the mechanism of emotional integration. When we process our experiences instead of fighting them, the raw, sharp pain gradually converts into nuanced insight. The event itself does not disappear, it transforms. It becomes a component of your emotional wisdom, not a source of ongoing injury. The world often urges us to move on, but moving on isn't about pretending the experience was insignificant. It is about fully acknowledging that it was significant, that it changed you, that it carved depths in your character you didn't know you possessed. Growth does not delete your past, it rewrites your relationship to it. Letting go also necessitates forgiving yourself for not knowing then what you know now. We judge our past selves with the harsh lens of our present-day clarity. But clarity is the offspring of experience, not its precursor. You could not make the wise choices you make today without having navigated the unwise ones you made yesterday. That is not failure, that is feedback from your own ongoing evolution. There is a vital concept in psychology known as self-compassion, and it is more than mere kindness. It is radical realism. It is stating, I was navigating with the map I had at the time. It is the choice to view yourself not as a villain or a victim, but as a student learning to navigate the inherent impermanence of life. The truth is, the mind clings because it mistakes the familiar for the safe, but clutching what is gone keeps you rehearsing ancient fears instead of practicing newfound courage. You cannot step fully into tomorrow if one foot remains entangled in yesterday. Think of your life as a vast, flowing river. Every person, every experience, every dream that enters your sphere is like a leaf floating alongside you for a time. Some drift away gently with the current. Others are pulled under and vanish from sight. You do not dive into the turbulent waters after every single leaf. You learn to trust that the river itself knows its own destination. This is the portrait of emotional maturity, participating fully in life without drowning in its transient currents. Letting go is not a passive surrender. It is an active, daily decision to stop feeding the thoughts that cause you suffering. It is choosing not to reopen the wound each morning by checking on who has moved on or obsessing over what might have been. The brain will instinctively chase unresolved narratives, but your healing officially begins the moment you refuse to keep writing the same painful chapter. There's a well-known principle in cognitive science. Neurons that fire together, wire together. The more you mentally replay a painful event, the more you strengthen those specific neural connections of attachment and pain. But when you deliberately redirect your attention toward gratitude, toward growth, toward what is present and good in your life now, you are literally rewiring your brain. You weaken the old circuitry of attachment and fortify the new circuitry of peace. This is the scientific basis for why mindfulness is so effective. It isn't about emptying your mind, it is about observing your thoughts and feelings without clutching them. When a wave of sadness or nostalgia arises, you note its presence. This feeling is here, and you allow it to pass through you. The more you practice this, the more your brain learns that emotions are temporary visitors, not permanent residents or commands you must obey. Some days, the act of release will feel effortless, like a deep, cleansing breath. Other days, it will feel like uprooting something deep within the earth. This is perfectly normal. Healing does not travel a straight, predictable path. It moves in spirals. You will revisit the same core pains from ever higher vantage points of understanding. until they simply no longer define you. There is a quiet dignity in this process of release. You gradually stop chasing external explanations and start appreciating the profound mystery of divine timing. You begin to perceive that some chapters do not end because they were mistakes, but because you absorbed the lesson they were sent to teach you. Every person, every season, every heartbreak leaves behind a kind of mirror. You can either spend your life gazing into it, trapped in the reflection, or you can learn to see through it to the truth beyond. What most people fail to realize is that letting go doesn't always require cutting off contact with someone. Sometimes it means renegotiating the emotional contract you have with them. You stop expecting them to provide what they are fundamentally incapable of giving. You stop needing them to complete a sentence that, upon reflection, was always yours to finish alone. This is not rejection. It is a wise recalibration. And one day, you will notice a subtle shift. You will drive by a place heavy with old memories and feel only a gentle gratitude. You will hear a song that once shattered you and find yourself simply humming along. You will recall a face that used to cause your heart to constrict, and instead, a soft smile will form. That is your evidence of healing. Not when you have forgotten, but when the act of remembering has lost its power to cause you pain. Psychologically, this is known as emotional extinction. The neural pathways that once triggered a lightning storm of pain have lost their electrical charge. The memory remains in your mental library, but the associated suffering has dissolved. This is living proof that your brain possesses an innate capacity to heal, that no emotional state is permanent, and that peace is not a distant destination to be found, but a daily practice to be cultivated. Letting go also demands immense courage, because it means accepting that some of our stories will never, ever make logical sense. Human beings are narrative creatures. We crave a clean, coherent story arc, but life often refuses to comply. People vanish mid-conversation. Endings arrive without warning or explanation, and sometimes there is no deeper, hidden meaning, only the stark reality of change. But there is a strange, stark beauty even in unanswered questions. They serve as humble reminders that mystery is an indelible part of the human experience. When you finally stop your desperate search for perfect closure, you unexpectedly open yourself to the beauty of imperfect beginnings. You start to notice glimmers of opportunity growing in the soil where only grief once lived. You observe that life continues its forward motion, not out of cruelty, but out of a deep, abiding mercy. Because if the flow of time halted at every heartbreak, not a single one of us would have survived our very first goodbye. There is also a collective, cultural dimension to release. Every society, every spiritual tradition, every wisdom path has its rituals for this very purpose. Funerals, farewell ceremonies, the burning of letters, closing rituals, these are not arbitrary customs. They exist because the human psyche requires symbolic acts to mark an ending. It is how we teach our subconscious mind that a particular chapter has concluded, granting ourselves permission to begin the next. You have the power to create your own personal rituals. Write a heartfelt letter you never intend to send. Bury a small object that represents your pain. Walk a path you once walked with another, and this time, breathe in the solitude. These intentional, symbolic acts reprogram the deeper layers of your mind, sending a clear signal. It is time to turn the page. The deepest layer of psychological insight about letting go reveals this. We are not merely releasing the past. We are actively reclaiming the present moment. Every thought, every ounce of energy spent dwelling in yesterday is precious attention stolen from today. and the present moment is the only real territory where authentic healing can ever occur. Just look at the natural world. Every tree in its season willingly releases its leaves. Every ocean tide recedes before it flows back to the shore. Nature herself operates on fundamental cycles of release and return. If you stubbornly cling to the beauty of summer, you will completely miss the majestic beauty of autumn. If you spend your time mourning the cold of winter, you will be blind to the rebirth of spring. Perhaps our deepest suffering arises not because life is constantly changing, but because we stubbornly refuse to flow in harmony with its inherent rhythms. There is a form of wisdom that arrives only through the gateway of loss. It tenderizes the ego. It demonstrates, beyond any doubt, that you can survive experiences you once believed would destroy you. That survival is not about avoiding pain, but about the profound art of adaptation. You become softer in your approach, quieter in your demeanor, less reactive in your responses. You release the need for everything to last forever. You come to understand that impermanence does not rob things of their value. On the contrary, it is what gives them their exquisite, poignant meaning. Imagine if every song you ever heard played on an endless, monotonous loop without a final note. You would eventually stop listening altogether. It is the ending that gives the music its shape and its beauty. This is the same profound truth that applies to people and to moments. Their fleeting, temporary nature is precisely what makes them so precious. So, when life, gently, or sometimes forcefully, asks you to let go, understand that it is not taking something from you. It is teaching you the essential rhythm of existence. It is reminding you that love is not measured by its duration, but by the depth of your presence within it. That the truest, most authentic form of strength is not found in holding on tighter, but in having the courage to open your hands wider. And in time, with practice, you will begin to see the act of letting go not as a loss, but as a form of spiritual alchemy. Your pain is transmuted into insight. Your tears become the water for something new and unseen within you to grow. You stop fruitlessly asking why you had to lose and start to comprehend what you were always meant to gain. Maybe one day, not too far from now, you will meet the version of yourself who has finally learned to stop reaching for what is already gone. You will look into the mirror and you will see someone lighter, someone freer, someone who is at peace with the natural flow of all things. That person is not perfect, but they are profoundly real. They have stopped performing the act of healing for an audience and have started truly living it. Because letting go is not a finish line you cross. It is a daily practice. Every single morning, when you wake up, you make a choice not to carry what has become too heavy. Every single evening, you consciously set down what no longer fits the person you are becoming. It is an ongoing, gentle conversation between you and the present moment. You ask, do I still need to carry this? And as you keep choosing your own peace over and over, your heart gradually, gracefully learns the art of release. You will stop fearing endings because you will understand they are merely transformations in disguise. You will stop demanding closure from external sources because you will realize the story of your life never truly ends. It just changes form. The psychology of letting go is, at its core, the psychology of ultimate freedom. When you release your grip on all that you cannot control, you make a triumphant return to all that you can. Your perception, your presence, your purpose. You begin to see that every goodbye carries a hidden blessing within it. Every ending is a subtle, whispered invitation to start your story anew. So, if you find yourself standing in the sacred space between what was and what is yet to be, please just take a single, deep breath. You do not need to rush your healing. You do not need to have everything figured out. Just trust the process of release. Trust that what is leaving you now is, in fact, making sacred space for what is truly meant to arrive in your life. And one day, when you are least expecting it, you will wake up and realize you are not holding on anymore. You will simply be living, and it will feel like warm, golden sunlight finally reaching a room in your soul that has been dark for far, far too long. Because that is what letting go truly is. Not the end of your capacity to love, but the beautiful, quiet beginning of your permanent peace. And if this perspective helped you find a little more of that peace today, please help these ideas reach others by liking this video and subscribing to Winds of Thought.